Welcome everyone to the VODS Music Hall in Berlin, host of the group stage. Worlds is a tournament where you have to conquer your demons, and today Rekkles and Fnatic go up against their arch nemesis Uzi and Royal Never Give Up. What a way to start the day as the teams are arriving in the VODS Music Hall. I'm Shox, excited to jump into day 4 alongside Kobe, Spawn, and Papa, or Papa Smithy. What do you prefer?
Whatever works, Shox, whatever works.
Big Papa?
Sure.
Okay, let's go with that then for now. No?
I like Big Papa.
Okay.
Thanks, Kobe.
Well, I might not do that. But anyway, we are 4 days into the group stage, so I think it is time that we have a bit of a bigger discussion about what we've seen so far and the trends that are starting to emerge. Sure. With that in mind, let's take a look at the standings. The only group that's already completed their first round robin is Group D, which has TL, IG, and Damwon all tied at 2 and 1. Quite the group of death, although unexpected.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming into this tournament, this was a group that everyone was looking for. Looks like 3 teams deserve to get out and only 2 will be able to. However, AHQ have such a good ability to upset in this group. We've already seen competitive matches from this team, and I'm excited to see whether they have any other surprises to be able to generate that.
And not often does it actually go as rock, paper, scissors as it's played out here. Usually there's a front runner and someone who needs to catch up, and that we focus on them in the second week. Instead, we've had everyone taking wins off everyone, and unfortunately AHQ now being separated, so a lot can still happen in week 2.
And AHQ were actually very close to taking a game off of Team Liquid yesterday, which might make people a little bit more worried for Team Liquid. I would have to say, though, that that was probably Jensen's worst game of the entire year. There have been some things that you've come to rely on from this new Team Liquid. Impact is a monster in the top lane. That is something that has not really been attributed to them before, but he has proven himself over and over.
What you're saying is that you still have the faith that they are going to make it out. I know, of course, you're from the region, but do you feel they're undervalued?
I mean, I feel like coming into it, a lot of people did, but having seen them perform once again, it seems like some of the worries have been, smoothed away.
So they're getting out?
Yes.
Yes. Then the LCK representative, although you're also kind of half NA nowadays.
Yeah, I've kind of been an anti-LCK, it feels like, on this particular desk when it comes to predictions. I think the win over IG for Damwon was a big one, because I actually, for a lot of the preparation, thought maybe Damwon would fall out and then it would be TL pushing through. It really does depend on how the meta goes right now. We have the scaling meta going on. If it stays there, TL's in their home, and I think they go through. There is a chance that if we ramp up in aggression, maybe TL bottom out, and Damwon Gaming, again, fresh off that big victory, do make it out.
Yeah, I think that IG will get out, TL will get out, and then unfortunately Damwon and AHQ won't be able to.
Oh, we'll check in with that at the end of the group stage. But over in Group D, we've got some big ticket matchups in what I'm going to dub a bit the group of mess. It's kind of a mess. FPX was in there. Big favorites. Now we're all hot and cold.
Where's Raz at? Raz said this was going to be simple.
Yeah.
What happened to the freest group of all time? Right now, everyone's just beating everyone in this, and even underdog Splice, who took all 5 games to make it into World's main stage, were able to have a great performance yesterday, and this group just looks honestly really all over the place.
I mean, it went being a free group for FPX to being a free-for-all group, Spawn.
It almost feels like I'm willing to say that FPX is by far the worst performing team in this group, even though they went 1-1. This has nothing to do with what the team was before Worlds, but they lost a game, and then they played a second game where they were losing until they got the biggest freebie handout ever. So what are you seeing there, Spawn, if you don't agree?
I mean, I'm looking at it and I see Doinby on his rise, taking over a game with the shot calling ability to be able to drag them back from the brink. We knew it was a young lineup. They said that they were going to have nerves. I think they've now got through a couple of games and will continue to ramp up.
Would you at least agree that LWX was the hardest int that we have seen?
No, actually, I wouldn't. I would say Jensen was the hardest.
Oh, we're getting personal
Those are
here.
far more forced errors. LWX was of his own accord.
Yeah, potentially, but I also do think people underestimate how much of this team is Doinby say, everyone else do. And I think a lot of these decisions are like, we're going to set up this particular form of team fight. And as we showed yesterday, that had worked historically so well for this FunPass lineup. And there are clips where LWX is getting quadra kills versus Uzi, my friend.
Shox, have you got the boxing gloves under there?
Yeah, I'm going to cap it here, but I'm loving it. Keep it going. Namely, in terms of the favorite talk. We had a lot of pre-tournament favorites. FPX was definitely in that conversation as well. Is it safe to say it is SKT and G2 so far that only deserve that moniker, Papa?
I think definitely, SKT above expectation at the start because they haven't needed to warm up, and G2, the style was surprising on day one, but the results certainly not.
I would say because G2's won in two different, very different ways, I actually have them now as like pretty clear favorites. I think that SKT has been pushed much harder.
Yeah, exactly. I think SKT has had a harder opponent in RNG.
Yeah, when you look at possible growth, of course, and you know that SKT is already that strong in the beginning, it thinks that they may, I think rather that they will make a very deep
But
run.
let's think about how bad Wonder and Jankos played yesterday, and they picked up a 26-minute win, so that's pretty impressive.
Jat said that he could jungle for G2 and they would still win. It kind of now looks like
that was a point in Jat's corner yesterday.
Yeah, we'll see how that evolves. We do have some games that can turn the groups upside down today, Kobe. A lot of them are very important for the eventual possible ties as well.
Exactly. I'm so excited for today because so many teams that are 1-1 in their group are going up against each other. And these are teams that were kind of power leveled very similar coming into the tournament. RNG versus Fnatic tiebreaker, Cloud9 versus Griffin tiebreaker, and all of Group B.
And being flanked by the Freedom region right here on the desk, you know, with Papa and Kobe.
Yeah.
I look at this and I just say, this is a really tough day for North America. I mean, looking at Clutch's opponents, as well as the fact that Cloud9 are going up to Griffin, who did have a resurgence, this is going to be a hard day.
But the undercurrent of C9 Griffin with all the stories around Griffin today, it's so threatening to simmer over. If Cloud9 are going to beat Griffin, I thought that would be unconscionable maybe a month ago. Today feels like the day.
So you calling it?
I mean, I'm thinking it.
You voted against Korea in literally every game so far, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Well,
we'll see later on. I do want to have a bit of a check-in as to how the meta is evolving. And two teams that went all in yesterday were HQ and the GAM esports, who, much like the Joker, thrive in the element of chaos. And Spawn, you were pretty adamant to talk about the fact that this chaos style, or whatever we want to dub it, is good for beating teams that might be better than you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if the meta continues to slow down, if we're going to see such a high presence of bans against Pantheon and Qiyana, the two best early game champions in my opinion, then this style of all-out aggression, engaging, taking every team fight, and putting the game into an area where you have to make such hard choices of when you fight or not as a scaling team, can create these upsets and generate big snowball advantages.
This is something that we saw very similar in North America when Clutch Gaming made their rise from 7th place up here to be a Worlds participant. It was with so much focus on these dive-heavy champions, AoE for the team fights, the Qiyana, the Rumble, all these things layering together and going right at the enemy team, trying to force over and over and over.
And I love teams that have a very easy-to-execute philosophy, even if the practice is a little bit harder. You know, just go for the backline, dive in, use the ultimates in a layered fashion, and see if you can pick up the surprise win. You only need 2 or 3 team fights in a game to be able to run away with a Baron and a victory.
Do you think if teams that run this composition, does that then mean that other things fall to the wayside, map control, vision control, and all that? And is that then not an inherent new risk?
It lets you cheat a bit, right? Nocturne with the ability to use a global and close distance, these level 6 comps, I agree with you on that, and that's why we're framing it especially as kind of picking off victories. That doesn't mean that great teams employing these strategies won't get great results as well. And if you're playing slow games like G2 showed against Griffin, getting caught out while you're scaling is a real possibility.
And vision control is a very blanket term for a very nuanced thing in our game, right? Different compositions need vision in different areas. These sorts of team comps still do need vision, but it's mostly just around the objective that they're starting so they can then hard engage.
Or maybe vision denial. What was so impressive about that composition was the Qiyana being able to find flanks and things like the Dust Blade this way, but just make that so much easier in the current meta.
It's definitely also very entertaining to watch, as was C9G2 yesterday, a game that had its fair share of chaos, and that's why we also have him in this week's mic check, which features that epic clash between G2 Esports and Cloud9.
My communication is never so thin anyway, so I'm like,
yeah, you have to stop cosplaying.
Okay guys, I'm gonna give you a tip. Just mute the enemy team from the beginning of the game.
Yeah, I will.
You really think they're gonna type?
is it BM if I say like, wait, what? Where is Svenskeren?
Oh, yeah, actually.
Like, is it mentalage or no?
I
It's
think it's kinda
mental.
funny.
It's mental.
I think it's kind of funny.
Where is Svenskeren?
Yeah.
Because then you get unfocused and then you have to mute.
I'm coming for you, licorice.
All perks is coming down for Eric.
He's trying so hard not to smile actually. I think when he goes for this
Fighting top, fighting top.
Okay.
I don't know where anyone is. He's dead if no one's here. I don't think Kiana's there. I don't think Kiana's there. Okay, I'm chasing.
Yeah. He flashed, I'm coming top. But I'm kind of low.
Flash. Yeah. I'm dead. They flash to the con and I.
Got us top. Nice at top. Nice.
Okay,
I'm coming. He flashed.
Actually, I think
He misses all. Yeah, I'm coming. He should die. Nice, Eric.
Nice.
Holy, you're smurfing. He's dead.
I'm fine.
Yo, look at blood.
No,
Yeah, I'm coming.
He has pull.
Kill the tower.
It's gonna be.
I'm just starting. I'm going. Take it.
Okay.
Zoe's here.
Zoe's there. Zoe in the flash, guys.
Yeah, I'm cocoon out of it.
He should just die.
I missed. Nice, guys.
Sure.
Well,
Camp. But maybe just stand still. I don't know
we
if
are
can do
kind of
this
running it.
Okay, I think we are, and I think let's just play with Zyra Khan and let them carry.
Cash is 1 HP.
Okay, let's walk up.
Yeah.
He's no ult. He's no ult.
Look, Tristana here.
Casher's dead.
I'm on Nautilus.
Oh, you guys win.
I can look for you.
Just go bot.
Nice, sir.
Wait,
He's
you
on the
the
side.
wave though.
Getting the wave. I'm not sure about this one, guys.
Oh, honestly.
Oh,
he's dead.
I'm sure about it.
Oh.
Okay, I'm coming.
I'm kinda out.
Look.
Is that?
Oh. We win
Still
this?
not too bad.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think it's
It's a bit hard to go in.
I
But
can-
Oh, look, so they're both. She can't go.
Okay, at least
no ult.
Sorry.
Zoe's 1 HP.
I need peel, guys. I need peel here.
Yeah.
Peeling.
Peel.
Okay, so you get.
I'm level 2 out now, too.
I am
looking.
ready.
Okay, I'm going.
Okay.
It's a miss. It's a death.
It's an
ace. Where's Aatrox?
Coming for Aatrox.
He's hiding. You cannot hide from me. I will fight you and I will flash taunt you.
Well, that was a good game, guys. I just wanted to prove a point that like, the bot lane is so fucking
Better bot lane always wins.
Possibly two of the most entertaining teams to hear talk on comms as well.
That was awesome. honestly.
Blabber talks so much. Maybe Blabber, maybe that's where it comes from. Maybe that's because he's so active.
It's a good trait for a jungler.
Where does the fish part come from?
It's not in there. It's just called Blabber. I know what you're talking about. No, I liked it in terms of the fact also that it seemed that both teams were kind of keeping a cool head and having a bit of fun with it. I think you have to do that in these situations.
Yeah, I mean, both of these teams are known for having really good team atmospheres.
Yeah.
And both of them have been very flexible in adapting to different strategies.
The power of friendship, and also despite Cloud9's rather loss, Licorice was an absolute monster on Aatrox, and the top laner is also on our list of players to watch. I've come to rely on Licorice a lot to show up at these tournaments for Cloud9.
I think North America does as a top laner next to the recent reblossoming of Impact. And actually, if you loop Impact in there, we're debuting NA Aatrox on the world stage and showing off that can be a big pick. Put the Jace away, the Aatrox is here. Some really dominant displays, and Licorice definitely was doing everything he could to get at least one half of the map a big advantage yesterday.
First in forward percentage, that
means he's styling,
the entire
right?
group stage. He is styling with those picks.
And it's not just his lane stats. He does so much for the team when they need these big team fights in the mid game, finding flanks and finding those engagements for the rest of the crew.
Fantastic job by him. Another player I want to talk about from the same game is Perks. 80 carry since almost a year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really nice to just think about the fact that Perks last Worlds was performing as a mid laner, now as an AD carry. And going into MSI, the big question about G2 was how is their bottom lane going to stand up on the international stage? Well, I think that all critics have certainly been silenced because their bottom lane looks dominant. And Perks, he's not beaten down by the old AD carry meta. He doesn't need 3 or 4 items. He's just a powerhouse from literally level 1 in the lane.
And he has been an absolute monster. It's ridiculous to me that he has found this much success so quickly in the new role. You watch him on Xayah, his flashes to get the correct blade caller are just on point.
Fantastic, and it sucks to be Mickey in that situation because he flies under the radar when he's such an important part of that G2 bot lane as well. Well, there's only 2 people, so if
He's just the fact that he's so elegant, even on AD carry, he was a wonderful mid laner, but the fact that he's getting the same sort of vibes as an AD carry as well, just a complete package.
Fantastic job from Perks, Mickey, and the entirety of G2 so far as well from SKT. Faker is back at Worlds, and he has made a statement so far, although I think not everyone agrees on this topic.
I certainly think that Faker is outstanding. He has performed so well already here, and he's found his soulmate, Clid, in the jungle, bringing that power. You know, every mid laner we've always talked about, oh yeah, but only if he could find the correct jungler here to help him out early game, and it really has come true for this duo. They've been on point.
And it felt like a long time ago Faker was one of the what about me class of mid laners who really needed all of the resources his way, or you weren't going to get the same results out of him. Bengi and other junglers rolled through. The fact that he's reinvented himself like he has at this tournament and is really willing to dodge out a lane if he needs to, maybe taking a follow from Caps and how he was playing back at MSI, he really is on point.
We already got to listen in to the comms where Faker on the Twisted Fate game calling for the back door to finish the game. It just helps out so much when the pressure is this high on the world stage to have someone like that.
He's superhuman and absolutely no discussion, been playing out of his mind. Someone we haven't mentioned as much because in that team the attention usually goes to someone else is Karsa for RNG. You've been inspired by how he's been playing.
Yeah, I really have. And I think a lot of people have underrated him, but if you pay attention to RNG, he is so important to this team, and he has been a top jungler in the world for so long.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the underratedness, right? This is a guy on Flash Wolves that was once again the Korean killer when they were showing up at international events. He's now the last couple of years been there for RNG. And how many teams do you have to be a top jungler on? How many titles, how many upsets do you have to be able to generate before you're actually just acknowledged as maybe a top 5 jungler in the world? And Clid versus Caster was honestly a masterclass in jungling yesterday.
It almost feels like it's unfortunate that he's been fairly rated in his corner of the world for a long time, but between the LMS and the LPL, he never got his due on the international stage. Feels like we said that 4 tournaments in a row. Just deserves some more due, apparently.
Yeah, more than top 5. Let's bump him up even more.
Oh, where are we going? 3? 2?
2?
3.
Oh, 3, baby.
Okay, high praise. We'll see how he does in game 1. Rather, there he is, Karsa. Now, one of the most iconic things about League of Legends are the tense standoffs at major objectives, and none more revitalizing or devastating than Baron steals. Here's to 10 years of that purple snake buff.
The game. We do see X Special and Wild Turtle just down the bottom. The odd one is close by, but I'm not sure he's got enough. He's going to have to go so deep to try and land this one. He wants to get it, get the smite down. He can get it! He gets the smite down for TSM. Well, it was a sacrifice, but it was worth it. Extra Baron, is he going to go their way? That's the question. Coming down the side. Gorilla tries to come in. Watches there. Can he get the smite? Oh! He gets it! He'll go down by the right, but that may well have just get that white shield in the game.
This is surprising though, the third Dragon.
It's not! Oh, it is surprising indeed. Keep it away from Origin. They're going to try to get it. Can Amazing steal it? He's he got it! Amazing! Steals the Dragon! And that is Dragon number 5 for Origin. Steals the steal.
But this box is coming right now. And Ultimate and a Malzahar.
There'll be no paranoia, but Gorilla's going to get dropped. He's already dead. Look at the slicing maelstrom. G2 are locked up, but Smith is down. Kuro gets rooted in place, and it's a double kill for Perks. Prey is caught by an Aqua Prison. He manages to back away safely, and G2 turns towards Baron.
And that is how you use your mid-game gold lead. They group up, they dare the Rocks target to come towards them, and they peel completely as a unit. Now it's on Peanut to try and steal. His ultimate is up in about 10 seconds.
Yeah, I think he's going to look for it. They don't want to follow this front line. Prey's going in. Will he try for the steal?
Peanut's going low on
Drake. So low. He can kill Drake.
Stop. Peanut's going for the 50-50. G2 on line. Reflection from Peanut. Secure. The Rocks Tigers get the Baron.
Back out there. No, there is none around the Baron pit. They have the damage to get it done.
Oh! Are you kidding me? Somebody wants a counter to how can you gotta do that? That's
BF swords some additional burst. Keep your eyes on Rekkles on the flank. 5 members of RNG in the pit. MLHG takes it down. And Fnatic.
They have very good Baron damage and very good Baron turn. This should definitely be theirs. Only Lissandra and now the Ornn could contest.
Teleport is being used. What are Cloud9 gonna do about it? Jensen can go in and self-ult to buy time, but it would be almost the last case.
They're gonna try. They're gonna dive into the pit. Plenty of damage available, but will they even stop the Baron as the smite? Oh, he gets the kill on the juggler. Who's gonna get it? You gotta be kidding me! Licorice solo carrying this game. There's still 2 kills for Afrika, but can you believe that Baron steal?
He just punched the Baron. He punched the Baron. This world has been full of incredible moments.
I may be coming to North America next year, but that last clip, Kobe, it's still too damn soon.
It's like an injection of adrenaline just seeing all those plays.
Honestly, there's nothing more adrenaline-inducing in our game than these late-game Baron fights.
I remember the Karma steal with the IQ. I got tackled as a caster throughout the clip where that happened.
That's impossible! No, it's not.
It was, there was also a couple of this year's at Worlds. There was an unfortunate Clutch Gaming one as well versus Mammoth.
There have been a lot already.
Yeah, I'm going to cut you off because we need to continue and talk a bit about Fnatic and RNG in a second. But first, Riot will be celebrating 10 years of League of Legends later tonight. And to join in on the festivities, check out celebrate.leagueoflegends.com. 10 years already, so many Baron steals, and hopefully another great game to add to that catalog after this one, Fnatic versus RNG. And ahead of that game, Locke got up with Fnatic's bot laner.
Thanks, guys. As we're about to dive into the last day of round one, I wanted to have a little chat with you, Rekkles, because I saw you walk off the stage last time looking really upset. So were you mad about your own performance or the general performance from Fnatic that day?
Probably both. I think so far I haven't been playing that well, and we haven't been playing that well as a team either. So in my mind, if we keep on doing like this, then we won't get where we want to be, which is to win Worlds. So we really have to step it up now that we have 4 games left, because we either have to take down RNG or SKT. And by the looks of it, RNG is the weaker one, judging from their game yesterday, or day before yesterday. So we really need to make sure that we step it up now for these 4 games so we can actually make it out. Because if you look at the rest of the competition, other than G2, there's not really that many scary teams. So I feel like if we can make it to the quarterfinals somehow, then we can actually probably go the entire way.
I agree with you on the SKT and RNG statement, especially because even though RNG looks strong, they look more predictable. But we know that Uzi has always been your kryptonite.
Well, I feel like it's more of a Reddit thing probably than something for myself, because I think Uzi is just that much better than every other AD carry in the world. So it's not really like you have a mental block against the guy because he just shits on everyone. But I can imagine it looks like that. But in my mind, he's just really good player, so it's hard to not have a mental block against him, I guess, because he just always like does really well. But I don't think it's like a problem or anything. I feel like when I played against him in the past, I was always fine. I mean, I had a pretty bad tournament at MSI, but even in the semifinals to play against them, I was doing well. When I played against him in 2016, I was doing well. In 2017, we had a pretty close series, I would say. So I don't think it's like that big of a deal. I just think it's something Reddit has blown out of proportion.
About Reddit, you saw the Garen Yumi memes about you guys, and I expect today people will hope that you play a real marksman matchup against him.
Well, so we actually had a talk yesterday about Garen Yumi, because we all kind of saw, I guess, that people don't really like it. And we decided for ourselves what is best, right? Because I can understand if some people are getting affected by it. I, for one, don't really care, because I just want to win. So if we believe Garen Yumi is the way to win, then we're going to keep playing it. But I wanted to hear what everyone else had to say, and I guess today will be a show of what we decided on. But we have addressed it, just as how we have addressed our own play and our team play. So I think if we can't win now, then it's just we're playing against better teams. But if we can win now, then we can go the entire way. And that's my belief, at least.
Listening to you right now, I don't hear a lot of confidence. Do you agree?
I agree, yeah. It's hard to have confidence after these 2 games. I mean, if I like really think about it, it feels kind of like Spring Split in the beginning of Spring Split, where we had a really, really tough start and we didn't do much individually or as a team. And I feel kind of the same way right now. So I really hope that like one of these games can be the turnaround for us, because I really think we need confidence on ourselves and on each other, so that we can actually like get out of this group. Because I really believe if we get out of this group, then we can make it the entire way. Because other than G2, there's no one that's like scarier than RNG and SKT. So we really just need to get past one of them, and then we can take the other one in the finals, I guess. And I hope that this game will be the confident boost for you guys. Thank you for the interview and good luck for today. Now back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Laura. Very, very awesome interview with Rekkles. And I think he gave you a lot of information, seemed calm, cool, and collected. Maybe not that confident, but that is understandable. This is a very big match. And even though it might be a Reddit thing, the records just state that Fnatic and Rekkles have had problems taking down RNG in the past, which is why we also brought it up.
Just to first say it, though, pro players often hide behind veneers in interviews. They don't want to give you their real self. Between the double lift interview and Rekkles, I really appreciate a kind of peering into the mind there, but you also understand where Rekkles is coming from, because specifically you look historically, The record does not look good, right? So whether it's a mental block, whether it's a 5v5 thing, Rekkles was quoting a lot of timestamps. He remembers.
Yeah, he certainly does. But when it comes to the World Championship, all it takes is one moment, one player to stand up to get the team back on track. And today, the player that I'm looking at is going to be Broxah. His early game so far has just been, not all that stellar. We were talking about his K+A yesterday, the fact that it's still 0. And I think this is a player that when he plays well, does set up the rest of his team for a lot of success. And we've already mentioned the Garen Yuumi bit, but if you get Healy and Broxah back on the same page, back into that dominant early game, I think that Fnatic are going to have a much better shot of being able to take it to RNG today.
That's definitely one of the biggest differences that we have seen. Fnatic now versus the Fnatic that people are used to is their early game, is Broxah.
Indeed, and not making anything happen early for Broxah means that nobody else is making anything happen as well, and that shows in the play and the fact that they can't be as convincing as they have been.
And also the draft as well.
Yes.
This should be their focus to try and change coming into this game.
What do they change in the draft?
I think that one of the issues with the Garen Yuumi, which I think could actually be a part of a victory today, thing you have to remember is don't really want to gank for that lane, and I don't think Broxah had many openings that he was missing. It was a byproduct of a system, but also a draft that really causes his stats to look just putrid.
We'll see what they go for. Another matchup I want to take a closer look at is in the mid lane, as I think these are two players that have been under the radar but playing very, very well. Xiaohu versus Nemesis.
Yeah, and coming into this Worlds, I thought that Nemesis was one of those players that needed to be able to play well and didn't have all that much experience behind him to give confidence into that fact. However, the strength from the summer split does seem to now be bleeding over into Worlds, and going up against Xiaohu, maybe the most undervalued mid laner by his own team, doesn't necessarily get the resources he wants, but it does seem to be skewing a little bit in his favor at Worlds as well this year.
Yeah, I think one positive you can take away is that Nemesis is playing well on the world stage. He may be one of the best performing currently members of this Fnatic squad, and that kind of goes a long way when you're looking at the newer players on the big stage and playing under the pressure. Rekkles himself gave that interview where he said it doesn't matter who's the better team coming to the tournament, it matters how you handle the pressure that is at Worlds.
And full respect to Nemesis, I saw him in the EU Masters before he was on Fnatic. He played a similar style. He played takeover side lane champions like Kassadin, jumps onto the ADTF and does that in the LCS. And the LEC, I should say. And the fact that he's been so consistent, even with pieces changing him around him, thumbs up to him.
It's one of those cases where I was looking at the stats and it doesn't look that good, but it's not always about that purely in lane. It's about what you do to help out the rest of your team. For instance, in the huddle, there we see RNG getting ready and a little cheeky smile from Xiaohu as well. So with all of that information, we do also have to remember that now, even if you didn't have the best performance in the first days or the first games, this is where you absolutely have to make it count. For Fnatic, obviously, because they need that win, but for RNG as well, because they want to show that they can be a contender. Kobe, what is your prediction?
My prediction is going to be RNG today. I think Rekkles himself touched on it when he talked about Uzi. The greatness of this player sometimes is whittled down by people going, between 15 minutes and the end of the game, they give him a large portion of the CS. But you know what happens before 15 minutes? He takes that CS from your AD carry and he earns it himself. There's a reason why everybody fears him. I think they're going to win.
All right, everyone's predictions explanation has to be as energetic as Kobe's.
All right, cool. So yesterday on Cooldown, we were talking about the power of this crowd. The fact that when you play in Europe, you not only play against a team, but also everyone here in the arena. And today, that's just not going to matter because RNG is going to absolutely smash Fnatic and they're going to pick up the victory.
The switcheroo, Papa.
I'm with Fnatic. I think Fnatic's got this one. Before the tournament, I look at the games, they weren't great, but they're going to go back to what worked domestically, and I think that aggression might catch RNG off guard.
Is he insane, or is he a crowd pleaser, or is he an oracle?
Bit of both, baby.
We're going to see. This is an iconic matchup, and RNG has had Fnatic's number so far at international events. Let's see if history will repeat itself.